What's happening, ATL? Welcome to Locked On Sports ATL Hangout. We are so excited to get together, guys. You know, we do this every couple of weeks just to kind of give you all the tea from our entire Atlanta Sports Network. So I am here, of course, Tenitra Batiste with my guy, John Chuckery, my guy, Jarvis Davis, and of course, Marcino tapped out on us today, but he'll be back at the next Hangout. So definitely looking forward to that. But man, do we have a lot to get into. It's a cray Friday here in Atlanta on our sports landscape, starting with the Braves. Now, of course, we know technically they are not in Atlanta, but it's still on our sports landscape, right? And this is a pivotal game three, maybe most importantly, because the Braves haven't announced the starter for the Phillies. We know that Aaron Nola is going to go for the Phillies, right? But we don't quite know who Brian Snicker is going to choose. So, guys, I'm thinking about this in the last few days when he's kind of said, I've got options. Maybe I'll choose you. When he was speaking to media, I'm thinking, whoa, Snit. And going back to him putting AJ Minter on the mound, looking like he was going to warm up, and then he pulls him and he puts Raciel Iglesias in. My point being, Snit's playing a little chestnut checkers. It appears. It appears. It seems like. What do you guys think?
You have to have Strider tonight. I mean, I think that's the thing is Strider tonight has to go. Look, the Braves didn't face an elimination game in last year's playoff run. You don't set yourself up. Morton in 5 starts against Philadelphia Phillies was 0-1 with a 5.47 ERA. Strider, of course, we know 4-0 with a 1.27 ERA. Even if you're talking about 4 innings or whatever, you kind of monitor and watch him. That's still better than running the risk of Morton gets in that ballpark, can't keep it in the ballpark. You know that Philadelphia wants to take that game. Look, this is always the swing game in a 5-game series, right? As game 3. Braves win tonight, you can eliminate the Philadelphia Phillies. So you don't go in there with the idea of we're trying to get to a game 4 and 5 and all that kind of. You go into it with we have to win tonight. Tonight is must win. We'll worry about tomorrow when tomorrow comes.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
I wholeheartedly agree, Chuck. When you think about what Charlie Morton has done, like I know Tanisha and I on ATL Day Ones, we always talk about like, all right, let's see what Uncle Charlie we get tonight. Is it gonna be Uncle Charlie or is it gonna be Charlie Morton, the guy who looks like he's breaking down? Because towards the end of the season, like I think it was last 7 starts, he had an ERA of 5.65. Like that's not good.
But
You
it's been
don't.
a career high in home runs given up too. That's the other thing about Morton is that it's been his most home runs that he's given up in a season. So that's in that ballpark, Citizens Bank, where it flies out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what scares you.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And then this is the first playoff game since 2011 too. So that crowd is going to be ready to roll. So you need somebody like a Spencer Strider to come in and just say, "Hey, not today," and then y'all gonna have to figure out when the next game because I got this one.
Yeah. And I love what you said, John, just to start off with Spencer Strider. If you get 2 to 3, 3 to 4 innings out of Spencer Strider, right? That's probably still going to give you more than you would get arguably in 3.5 innings from Charlie Morton, especially when you look at the success rate that Spencer Strider has had against the
Yeah.
Phillies just the short season he's had. So I like where you're going with that. Don't take a chance. Don't wait until, hey, maybe we'll do it in game 4. No, you put foots on next, as our guy Michael said, keep it moving. But I'll flip it for you guys and ask you, let's play the advocate. What if Snit shocks us and he decides to go Charlie Morton, which I still feel like that's a possibility. Do you guys trust that maybe, just maybe, we're going to see postseason Charlie Morton? Or are you convinced, my God, if he goes and he starts tonight, we're going to end up seeing shaky on the road Uncle Charlie?
Well, you still have to believe in the back of the baseball card, right? As Snitker and
Yeah,
those guys like to talk
yeah.
about. You still
Mm-hmm.
have to believe in that. So again,
Mhm.
it's not like we're not like we're talking about putting Bruce Chen out there in a start like this, right? I mean, it's
That's a good
it's
one.
still Charlie Morton. It's still his resume, right? Still the
Right.
back of the baseball card. One thing Morton still does, he strikes out a ton of
That's right,
guys.
guys.
So
Yep.
he's got
Mm-hmm.
that swing and miss stuff going. So I mean, yes,
Mhm.
he's had trouble keeping the ballpark, but he's got the swing and miss stuff going. It's not that I feel bad. It's just that I don't think you monkey around. Like,
Yep.
again, if Strider's on your roster, they know he can
Mhm.
pitch. They didn't put
Yeah.
him on the roster wondering whether or not he could pitch. Like, you wouldn't have taken up a roster spot for him. You'd have erred on the side of like what they did with Ozzy, right? You just err on the side
Mhm.
of we know he can't go, so there's no reason to put him on the roster. So he's on
Right.
the roster. He's not on there to be a bullpen guy. He's on there
Mhm.
because they feel like he can make some sort of start for them. How long? That's a different discussion. But I don't
Yeah.
feel bad about Morton. You just have to trust that the back of the baseball card is true.
and also trusted the fact that if he does get the start and he struggles, you'll hope that and pray that Brian Snickers has that quick hook, because at the end of the day, you have a bullpen that showed you that, hey, even your night shift 2.0 guys and your guys that you wouldn't necessarily put in high leverage situations, and Dylan Lee, those guys they showed really well in game one to hold on to the Phillies to 7 runs. So I think that I'm not too concerned, because I know that they have guys that are valuable and that can use. But like you said, at the end of the day, if like Chuck said, if Strider's on the roster and they feel comfortable, and they feel like he's 100% or 95%, go ahead and put the man in the starting role.
Going back to that, if he is less than 100%, and let's say, again, devil's advocate, that Snit decides to go with Charlie Morton tonight, and I'm looking at it from a game three perspective, but also a game four perspective, what are your thoughts on the possibility that Charlie is not very good, if he's not effective in those first couple of innings, but then you start in style? Do you see maybe Snit possibly going with Charlie Morton to start game three, and then kind of looking to see if maybe he wants to go with Strider or the bullpen?
No, because I don't think you want to. I don't think you want to burn Strider in that role. You want him to be available for a start. If it's not game three, then it's game four. So you want him available for a start in this series, because I think it's Max Fried will pitch game five no matter what. Look, your bullpen's had a day off. They had a travel day yesterday. Your bullpen is rested. God forbid goes to game five, you'll have another off day. I mean, so your bullpen is fine. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, look, even if Morton gets banged around, look, remember, game one, they only got 3 1/3 innings out of Max Fried. Okay.
Right.
So your bullpen came in and did the job coming in. McHugh and those guys, they can handle that role. I'm not so much worried about that, but Strider's either your starter or he's not. He's either healthy to start or he's not pitching at all. I don't think there's a bullpen role for him. I would have said a bullpen role maybe a few months ago, but now he is one of your locked on starters.
Yeah, locked on
Jarvis,
stars. I like that pun right there.
Like that, huh?
Let me ask you this, Jarvis. Can the Braves get? You guys were talking about that, the fact that the Braves were able to, of course, the bullpen held the Phillies in check, really both games, right? Because they scored nothing. It was a shutout in game two, not only thanks to Kyle Wright, but what the night shift 2.0, as I call him, was able to do. So when we look at the fact that we're going against Aaron Zach Wheeler, it was a pitcher's duel up to that fifth inning in game two. Now it's Aaron Nola. Do you think that the Braves can get to Nola a bit better and maybe a bit earlier than Wheeler? And also, we saw a different kind of game from the Braves in game two, because it was really about hits and getting on base and making sure that you get those runners in scoring position, scoring by any means necessary. Are we going to see a little bit of a different kind of game or a different strategy as it relates to Aaron Nola?
No. I feel like the Braves are equipped to play any way they want, any style they want to, however they see fit. Because I think that when you look at the way they won last game, right? They were getting guys on base and they were knocking guys in and getting 1 RBI. They won those 3-run home runs or 2 home run bombs, and the Braves have an excellent record when it comes to hitting home runs. So for them to win like they did, I'm not too concerned about it. So I think the main thing though is what the mantra that I said coming into this series: get to the bullpen. However you do it, if you can knock Aaron Nola out in the first 2 innings, do it. And if it takes 5 or 6, go ahead and do it, because I think that you're gonna have to trust your starting pitch and whoever's on the mound. And then once they get to the bullpen, I like the Braves bullpen versus the Philly bullpen all day.
I'll take the Braves pen any day. And listen, we're talking about the excitement of what's going on in Philly tonight, but we got a lot of excitement right here locally. We've got, of course, we'll call it a big game in Athens. It's Georgia Vanderbilt, or a tune-up game, if you will. But that one down in Benz on Sunday, now that is a big game. And think about another game where themselves as an underdog at home right now. The line is 5.5, but that also, let me tell you about the Falcons. If you're looking to bet, they're also 5-0 against the spread. So if you want to kind of watch that trend and see how much of an underdog they are or are not, and if you want to see potentially what the thought is on them being 6-0 against the spread, then you need to take a look at betonline.net, because that's really your number one source for all your betting needs and your sports info. You're going to find sports developments on your major leagues like NBA, like NFL, like MLB, but also there are some niche sports out there. We take a look at golf, MMA, boxing, they have everything. And for us, I know we kind of like to watch the trends as well because it's just good information that they have online. So listen, doesn't matter if you are a novice or a pro and expert at betting, they've still got something there for you. And they, like Locked On Sports Network, they have great podcasts as well with some great information. So once again, take a look at betonline.net because again, that is where the game starts. And you guys know, come 1 p.m. Sunday after the game starts for the Falcons, they're taking on the 49ers, maybe their most challenging game so far of the season, right? So for me, I'm looking at this. There's an interesting comment, if you will, that Kyle Pitts made earlier. And I know we're going to talk a lot about Kyle Pitts because, hey, we're happy that KP is back and potentially going to play in that game. As of this morning, he pretty much made it emphatically clear, I am a go on Sunday. So one of the things he talked about was the fact that they know the 49ers are a physical squad. And the Falcons know they're going to have to match that energy, that physicality. So I wanted to ask you guys, when you think about the Falcons and what you've seen so far in these first 5 weeks, that with what the Falcons have shown, identity established, that match.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've shown that they're going to play their style of football. Look, offensive line has taken a big leap this year. And it's not just their rushing yardage; it's their rushing attempts. That they're a top 3-4 team in running the football as far as how committed they are. They're now, I think, they're second to last in the NFL in passing attempts. They have their identity. We're going to control the line of scrimmage. We're going to win in the running game, and we're going to play good defense. And we know our defense. You know, if we need a late game sack or late game turnover, we feel like we can lean on those guys. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not going to be easy, and I talked about this yesterday, but you look at who is or who is not going to be in for the 49ers. Bosa may not be in there. Armstead, I don't think is going to play. You know, there's Kinlaw's a question. Yep. You know, I mean, there are several guys that most of their defensive line right now is dealing with injuries. If those guys are not there, then you have to take advantage of that. I mean, that's a them problem if they don't play. You have to take advantage of that. But Falcons, I will say, the Falcons need to do a better job of getting back to what's made them successful. I thought they got away from that last week. I thought they threw it too much early in that game, too much on first down. Get back to doing what you do well. You don't want the ball in Mariota's hands. And this is my hate minute for Mariota. You don't want the ball in his hands throwing it around. Like, good thing. I mean, with all due respect, we talk about Pitts, but it's still one touchdown in 22 games for Kyle Pitts. I mean, we talk about it's great to have Pitts back, but he ain't there to be a blocker. He ain't there to be a decoy. You know, you drafted him number 4 to be, get down the field and go get in the end zone. So, again, but that's not what the winning formula for the Falcons is right now.
And I to add to that, I think one of the things that has really been like cool to watch is the fact that, Chuck brought up an interesting stat, talking about how the passes have decreased as the games have gone along. Now that we're going into the 6th game of the season, you look at it and it's like a very cool trend. And I think Arthur Smith understands Marcus Mariota's limitations, right? But he's not going to say that outwardly because nobody likes a coach that throws his quarterback under the bus because this is his 2nd time around. Arthur Smith brought him in for a reason, and Marcus Mariota even talked this week about how even more comfortable he is with his relationship with Arthur Smith, about letting him know the things that he's comfortable with and the things that he's not comfortable with. So I think that you have a veteran guy who understands his limitations. Of course, he's not going to admit that, and his coaches isn't going to admit that. You just hope that they can come together and come up with a solid game plan to be able to execute. And we know, all of us know, that involves running the football consistently. And I think that the big factor for this game is Marcus Mariota has to at least get 50 to 60 yards rushing. And I'm thinking not call runs. I'm talking about, hey, if it's not there, that first read isn't there, take your butt off and go and take advantage of that because he has the ability to escape, pressure. And I think that he needs to use that as much as he possibly can. Of course, you don't want him to be facing that much pressure, but if you do get it, you need to use those legs because that's going to help keep moving the chains for the Falcons offense.
Yeah, and he can move his legs, and that will be great. I feel like he is sort of an X factor to your point, whether or not he contributes to the run game the way he did last week with about 60 plus yards, 61
Yep.
yards on the ground, which was great. But ultimately speaking, at some point, you do still have to throw the ball. That's what you're
Right.
supposed to do when you are under center. And one of the things that has been interesting to me is fans, media, everyone has been kind of speculating on okay, you have Kyle Pitts, you have Drake London. Drake London is getting a good number of targets, but not so much Kyle Pitts. That's still a problem with KP. And one of the it's interesting article, not anything that we haven't out by the way on our shows, but particularly one of the guys at USA Today, Dean Ward, kind of talked about this whole concept of an off-target pass rate, right? And so in the NFL, Kyle Pitts is number one in an off-target pass rate, and Drake London
No.
number five. So two of the top five off target pass rates in this entire league, two of the guys are on one team, and that is the Falcons. And the fact that nearly a third of those passes that are intended for KP, they're not getting to him, that's underwhelming production, all his fault. So I go back to the question. Well, it's actually a three-parter. So hear me out on this one. It starts with Arthur Smith. Is this about Art's ability to scheme and get Pitts open? Is this about Marcus Mariota and not being able to just do what he's supposed to do when Kyle Pitts is open because maybe that's not the kind of personnel that you need for a KP to make him most effective? If all of that, all things being said, how are they then going to address this for Sunday?
What's all three, though? I mean, with all due respect, I mean, it's Mariota and his inability to read defenses and make the throws that he needs to. It is Arthur Smith in getting him open. And it's on Kyle Pitts, too. Kyle Pitts is still the player. He has to fight to get open. You can't tell me he's a unicorn if he can't fight to get open. So it's all of them. I mean, again, I'm not looking to assign blame to one particular person. Everybody has to be better. What's not acceptable to me is it's one touchdown in 22 games. Like, that number's not acceptable. I mean, at some point, if that's what it's going to be, then we should have drafted Penei Sewell or Micah Parsons. Because, again, I don't need
Either
a decoy
one.
at number 4. I need guys that transform my franchise, that take me from I'm down here to up here. Well, Micah Parsons does that. You know, Penei Sewell transformed your franchise. I need those kinds of guys. So, you know, this is not on Pitts. It's not on Arthur. It's on Mariota. It's on all of them. They all have to be better in figuring out a way. Pitts is not unique in this league. All the top guys get double covered. You know, all the top guys deal with all the same challenges. This is nothing new for an NFL player to be double teamed or taken out or schemed against. You have to figure out a way.
Yeah.
That's where you're either Kyle Pitts, Arthur Smith, and Mariota are better than those guys, or they're not better. I mean, that's what it'll come down to. Either they know how to figure it out or they don't.
And as a play caller and as a tight end in NFL, I think that, you know, just going back and kind of looking at certain things, because that's one thing I've been kind of trying to figure out, like, okay, whose fault it is. Like, yeah, definitely I've seen that Mariota's faults, excuse me. But I've seen Kyle Pitts' faults as well, because there was one particular time he was running down the seam. He literally, it was all wide open. It was play action, of course, because that's just how the Falcons offense works. And all Kyle Pitts had to do was kind of like slow it down a little bit, but he ran right into the safety and ran himself right into coverage. So, and then of course Marcus Mariota overthrew him as well, so he didn't give a chance to catch the football. So I think that was a particular example of, yeah, it was Marcus Mariota's fault for overthrowing him, true. But Kyle Pitts could have made an easier throw for Marcus Mariota by kind of winding it down some and breaking that route off and go ahead and sit down and show his numbers to Marcus Mariota so he can make a easy completion. So I think, and I think Arthur Smith has done as probably as much as he possibly can from a scheme standpoint to, hey, like, okay, here's what you're looking at. Here's your reads on this particular play. You just got Marcus Mariota just has to go out and do it, and Kyle Pitts has to be a little bit more crisper in running his routes and understanding and reading and recognizing the coverages as he's running his route.
Yeah, because that is, as you mentioned, John, a perfect way to say it. That's what you're looking for in a unicorn. That's what you're looking for in your number 4 pick, to be able to
figure it out.
Figure it out. Make those catches that make us say, wow, like nobody else could do that, but a unicorn. Nobody else could do that but a number 4 pick, because that's what the expectation is, to your point, when we're looking at some of those other players that we said, oh, wow, there goes an O lineman. Oh, wow, there goes a defensive specialist, if you will, and we have a tight end, which is great. I love KP, no problem there. But at some point in time, you're going to need him, like you said, guys said, to be a game changer and a playmaker. And I would venture to say that when you look at some of the great wide receivers and the great tight ends, even when they've had game managers or mediocre quarterbacks, they can hide all of that. They
Right.
can hide all of that. They can get you not just moving the chains, but they can get you down the field. And when you get in that low red zone, they can find a way to make something happen. Now, speaking of, we talked a lot about the offensive side and kind of keys to the game and what can help the Falcons get off to a fast start offensively. But like you guys have said, this defense has been doing some great things. We've seen a lot of good stuff out of the defense. And John, I want to go back to something you said earlier, how at the end of games, we're looking at the Falcons like, hey, they can be in it. We saw that Grady, regardless of what the play call or the penalty was, we saw what we wanted to see out of what happened with Grady, and would have been 3 games in a row, right, where we get that sack, the final possessions to really swing the game. But looking at Garoppolo, you're looking at Deebo Samuel, and how can you and Deebo Samuel? He's like their Cordero Patterson. So that kind of gave the Falcons a sneak peek to be able to figure out how to scheme for him. But how do you keep Deebo from getting those big chunk plays, if you will, and kind of being that hybrid guy who can kind of line up for the night anywhere? How do you then force Jimmy Garoppolo to be the playmaker and win the game for you?
Well, I mean, look, one of the things the Falcons absolutely have to be better this week is taking away all the underneath stuff. I mean, Tom Brady just
Goodness.
killed him last week with
Yeah,
four
torched
nets,
him.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and if you look at both running backs for San Francisco, Jeff Wilson's averaging 5 yards an attempt running the football. Um, Debo was averaging 6 yards an attempt running the football. So
Mhm.
and look, they have an outstanding offensive line, and we'll see if Trent
Yeah.
Williams plays. That's another guy that there's been some question about, but their offensive line is outstanding. Trent Williams is
Mhm.
arguably the best offensive lineman in the entirety of the NFL, right? So they
Right.
run the football very effectively, but you can't let those guys get going underneath. Like Fournette just killed this team last week. And whether that's your linebacker, safety, what have you, coming up and trying to take that away, you have to keep everything in front of you and contain all
Mhm.
that, because you can't look, the 49ers are not going to go out and huck it around. They're not going to go out and stretch the field on you. That's not what they're built for. They're not built for going vertical on you, but they're very efficient. I mean, they are really efficient as far as how they run their offense.
And I think that I'm going to look to that interior defensive line to help, mitigate that run game. And then I think that Taquan Graham and Grady Jarrett, that tandem is starting to wrap into shape. And I think that those guys are going to be the guys to kind of start with that time, taking advantage of that interior offensive line of the San Francisco 49ers, because we know Grady is playing at all pro level and Taquan Graham is becoming a nice Robin to Grady Jarrett being the Batman.
Mhm. Yeah, and you also hope that maybe we get a good report out of Flowery Branch that Michael Walker is a go, because we really have some good play out of the linebacker core as well. So listen, guys, know that once again, we call For the Culture, where we talk about a little bit of energy, kind of what we want to talk about. We got our guy John Chuckery here join us and kind of tell us a little bit about what he thinks on some of our For the Culture topics. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but low key, Chuckery is an aficionado when it comes to R&B and great music.
Well,
So
because I'm
Chuck,
an old guy. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm an old guy. I mean, that's all. That's
I didn't
we
say
had
it.
old
I was
rock
just
and roll,
giving
and
you love,
we had
man.
R&B. Right? Yeah, I mean, so that's all we had, right? We didn't have all this new modern stuff, so we had to actually go to the store and buy records.
or take cassette tapes,
Yeah,
Chuck. How
exactly.
about that
Yeah,
one?
yeah. I
But that
literally
was
remember
also
when the
Chuck when
CD
you.
was invented.
Ooh, goodness gracious, man! CDs were invented.
But that was
Wow,
also
Mhm.
when
I
you could
feel
play
old.
it end to end, right? And it was a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah,
And we got an
absolutely.
R&B legend right now in the making, who you can still play all of his albums. I feel like start though he's not cool, but by ATL's own Usher. Usher Raymond the turns 40. Guys, I have to ask and honor birthday. What is your favorite Usher song?
This is probably going to offend people, but that's all right. That's what I do. I really like My Way. I really like the
Okay.
vibe
Yep.
that My Way
Oh,
is. I love
Yes.
that video too. Like watching. I mean, he's a
yes.
magnificent performer and dancer and everything like that. I love that video, but I love that song. I love just kind of the feel of that vibe. I know it's probably not one of his more popular songs, or I don't think it was one of his top hits or whatever like that. But I love My Way. I love the vibe that song has.
Oh, yeah.
To be
That's a
honest
good
with you, like, yeah, I was a big My Way fan, but
Me
when
too.
Usher performed on that Tiny Desk concert and he did Confessions, oh my goodness! When you talk about
Yeah.
just performing
Yeah.
and like how he had the young guys, the young R&B artists with him, and kind of deflecting to them, and kind of just how he brought them in, and just how he had it. It was just absolutely amazing. I just absolutely love, and then Superstar as well. Like those are my top two. When you think about what Usher and the way he performed those songs on that Tiny Desk concert, it was absolutely amazing, man. This guy's just an amazing performer. One of the old school performers. He's a new school kind of guy,
Right.
but he's one of
Yeah.
those old
Yeah.
school performers. He puts on a
Mhm.
show when you go.
He really kind of
Yeah.
he really kind of brought some early. I'm not saying he defined the identity of Atlanta and music, because I think technically he's born in Tennessee, is he not? I think he's technically born in Tennessee.
Dallas and then raised in Tennessee. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Born in
right.
Dallas, raised in Nashville before he moved here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But he's associated with Atlanta music, and he was one
Oh,
of those
yeah.
early guys,
Yeah.
that really kind of helped identify Atlanta. Obviously, him, Outcast. I mean, there were artists that before it really kind of just took off. There were some of those early artists that really helped define what Atlanta and the music scene was here. Usher was one of those
Oh,
guys. I
yeah.
mean, obviously,
Yeah.
he was a big part of all of that.
Yeah, and when you think about just what the effect that he had on the city of Atlanta, right? You talk about R&B and the hip hop scene and all those things that came along in the 90s and the early 2000s, like, and for him to be able to just last this long, it just
Yeah.
and it's just as faddish as the music game is nowadays. For him to be still relevant in 2022, and you talking about, and it's being his mid 40s and still be relevant as an artist, it just goes to show you just the talent that he had, and just the music catalog is just long.
Yeah, I mean, yeah is going to
You
be
see
one of
him.
those songs that will be playing for a
Forever.
100
Yeah,
years, right? I
he'll be
mean, I
long
mean,
gone.
sporting events and
It's,
everything
yeah, it's
else. Like,
still a
yeah,
banger.
is always, yeah. I mean, for Atlanta sporting events, especially, like, yeah, is going to be played forever. It's going to be one of those anthems that you will always hear at events.
Yeah, I've seen him in concert, and like you guys said, literally you can close your eyes and it's like they're playing a record because he is flawless. His
Yeah.
performance, his voice. I can't wait to get to Vegas. I'm gonna go check out the residence there. But yeah, I'm with
Uh-oh.
John on my video. Like my Way video, I probably watched that once or twice or three times a month because it was amazing. I'm gonna give you guys a point A and a point B, or a number one and a number two for me. My number two is actually Bad Girl, because if you're in the club and you hear Bad Girl, every woman in the club hits the floor because you a bad girl, right?
Uh-oh,
So
is there,
that's
is
like
there
my
something we need to
number two.
know? Something we need to know, or I mean, anything we need to
Yeah,
know, or
yeah, bad girl. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't play with me. But favorite song. My favorite song is actually one that not a lot of people appreciate. It was one that he wrote for his first wife, Tamika Foster, and it's called "Here I Stand." And the
Mm,
vocal, and it kind of takes you back to a Stevie Wonder type of
mm,
vibe and a flow. It is, it is the most beautiful song. That is by far my favorite song because it's literally him standing in front of a microphone, professing his love, and you can hear all of the purity and the strength of his vocals and the passion behind it. So yeah, that's definitely my song. So guys, as we wrap it up today, like we talked about, it's been a super busy, or will be a super busy weekend in Atlanta sports. I'm going to ask you guys, hit me with real quick, one thing that each one of you guys wants to see in this Georgia game against Vanderbilt as they continue to tune up for some of the bigger games like that Tennessee game in a couple of weeks. What do you want to see tomorrow?
just continue to run the football effectively. I mean, that's still part of Georgia's identity, and run the football effectively. Keep building off that. I know Stetson can throw it around. I mean, he's proven enough, and he's a national championship quarterback. Just run the football effectively. Continue to do that. Don't monkey around with Vanderbilt tomorrow.
Yes.
Give Dejon Edwards the rock. Please stop playing around. That is the best running back on this team right now, and Branson Robinson may have something to say about that. I believe they need to give him a few more carries, but Dejon Edwards is the guy that needs to be getting a bulk of these carries with the Georgia Bulldogs because, in a game like this, I think 50 rushing attempts isn't too far fetched.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's what, yeah, that's what it is. We don't mind seeing RBU on full display. And of course, the Hawks and Pels are actually in Birmingham this weekend to play their final game of the preseason. We've seen a couple tune-ups so far, and it's looked pretty good. But what is it that you want to see? Maybe one more thing that you want to see out of them before they kick off the regular season on Wednesday.
Just keep feeding John Collins. I just want to keep seeing that chemistry build between Murray and Young to John Collins because look, this is it's a big season for Collins, big season for DeAndre Hunter. Continue to get those guys offensively in the mix and just find and feed those guys.
Yeah, I just want to see the offense as a whole. Make sure because they at times it looked like they were a little uncomfortable. With Trey still working on playing off ball, and then you got DeJounte with his mid range game, which I think is going to be a great addition to this offense, and also making sure that chemistry between Capella and Trey Young, because you don't want to forget about that pick and roll tandem because that worked for the Hawks in an amazing way. And I think that also trying to figure out who's that guy that coming off the bench with Bogdanovich may or may not be ready for the season opener. And I think that you need to find a guy who's going to be your scorer coming off the bench. So is that AJ Griffin? Can you put that type of pressure on a rookie? I like what I saw. I like what I seen from him in these first couple of games in the preseason, but I don't know if Nate is going to trust a rookie to be that guy to get your scoring done off the bench.
Yeah, and I like something that John said about JC because in the game against the Cavaliers, the Hawks were behind most of that game, and single-handedly there was a decided like a focal point on JC in that third quarter, and he scored like 10 or 11 straight, and that's what helped the Hawks to get back in the game. So like you guys said, seeing how they're going to incorporate him and really make him a little bit more of a focal point for the offense, and then Jarvis, to your point, seeing what do we have down the bench. So once we get past 1 through 5, what's it looking like? And of course, I couldn't end a conversation about the Hawks without saying anytime, every time, all the time. If I get 1 minute of DeAndre Hunter at his best, that is always a good look. So even if Dre doesn't play a lot of minutes tonight, just maybe see a sneak peek of him again before we get those guys out next Wednesday. Hey, listen, we always appreciate you guys stopping by the ATL Sports Hangout for Locked On Sports Atlanta. Don't forget, you got ATL Day Ones, you got Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, you got A to Z with Mark Zeno. What else do you need? Obviously, you love it all because we're up to 4,500 subscribers and counting on YouTube. And don't forget, if you want to see the handsome guy on the big screen, handsome guy AD on the want to see Mark Zeno, handsome as well, and they can actually talk some sports.
That's questionable.
Then
That's all for debate.
on your Amazon Fire and Roku, because hey, that is going to be what you need to get you up to speed and keep you up to speed on all things sports Atlanta. So hey, go Braves, go Dogs, go get them Hawks. You guys have a great weekend, and we will see you on all 3 of our shows on the Locked On Sports Atlanta Network on Monday.